G'day everyone, my name's Nick Morris and welcome back to the Web Marketing Adelaide podcast. Today we're talking about the .brand revolution and we've got a special guest with us, Shaun Le Cornu from SLAM Strategy. G'day Shaun, welcome to the show.
G'day Nick, g'day everybody, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you going?
Busy, very busy.
Yes, it's always the way, isn't it, especially in this space, as we were just talking about before the show. It's very fast moving and always lots going on. But let's launch into the, before we get into the topic for today, how about you just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business, SLAM Strategy?
Sure, okay. My name's Shaun Le Cornu. I'm the CEO of SLAM Strategy and the founder. I've been in this industry since 1998. I was formerly working for my family's business, which if you're a South Australian you would know quite well, Le Cornu Furniture, and I was with them for 20 odd years and developed an online strategy for the company, and we generated about $7 million a year from that, which was great. I got to play with some very cool and fun internet tools while working for them, which has now put me into the fortunate position of being able to gain lots of experience. Then the company sold the business, and then I started up SLAM Strategy, and now I provide internet strategy solutions for business, based on that knowledge that I gained from that 20 years.
Awesome, great little introduction. So the topic for today, as I said, is the .brand revolution, and I think a lot of business owners perhaps may have been vaguely aware of this new thing with the top-level domains in the news, but they probably don't really have a good idea about it. So that's really what we're talking about today. What's it all about, and how does it how is it going to impact business owners?
Sure.
And you've got 6 points on your whiteboard there, and I think it's best if we perhaps go through each of those points so we can get a real sort of sense of what it's all about. So what's your first point you got up there, Shaun? And I'll let you get started.
Sure, okay. Well, what is the first one I've got up there? So, I mean, really that is, to give a bit of a background, we all know, if you don't know what a domain or a top-level domain is, that is .com, .gov, .net. They're considered top-level domains. There's also country code top-level domains like .com.au and those sorts of things. So there's roughly 22 top-level domains that have been in the industry for quite a while, and these were set up by a company called ICANN, which are the stewards of the internet, established by the US government. Yes, the internet is run by the US government, that's right. ICANN, which is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, they have been working on a plan to develop the whole internet for a long time now, and they started it out with the .coms that we know and .nets and that, and now as of I think it was June of 2011, they released the successful program to allow businesses and entities to own their own slice of the internet. So what that means is that, especially in terms of businesses, is that you are now going to be able to own your own trademark on the internet. So that's what a top-level domain is, and I think that pretty much explains it. Is there any more detail you'd like on that, do you think, for the listeners?
No, I think that sort of intros it pretty well. Just so we're sort of clear on it. So we're talking about, as you said, the .coms and the dot something that happens at the end of your domain name.
For instance, it might be .Nike, it might be .Ferrari, it may be .Toshiba.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's obviously going to be a pretty big difference to what people are used to, where, in Australia we're often looking for the .com.au's and more generally the .coms, and now we're going to be seeing .brand, which is going to be quite a different different space to be in, so it could be really interesting to see how it develops.
Look, it is going to be very interesting, especially for the brands, because for the first time, they're actually going to be able to control internet policy for their own trademark. Whereas if they were Ferrari.com, they would be under the rules and regulations of .com. Where under this, and what's most important for any trademark holder is that they need to have control of their trademark on the internet, and that's part of why 60% of the nearly 2,000 applications that went in were for brands. Now, this isn't for just any brand to get involved with. In fact, they created a window for the applications to happen, of which that's ended in March of 2012, I think it was, and that window allowed the people to apply. But first of all, you had to have $185,000 just for the application fee, and then there are the ongoing costs. So each one of these is about $500,000 a pop. Now, besides the brands, there are what they call generics, and really the top-level domains that I'm talking to you guys about are really broken into two main categories. And hopefully, I'm not going to lose people in this conversation, but there's two main categories. There's what they call an open top-level domains and closed top-level domains. Now, the difference between the two is that your .coms are what you would call an open, meaning that anybody, the general public, can apply to own a subdomain or a second-level domain name of that top-level domain. So it could be ShaunLeCornu.com, it could be Ferrari.com. But with the closed top-level domains, which are basically the vast majority of those are for brands, that is purely for internal purposes. The brands are not going to be selling those domain names. I mean, there's no point in selling a domain name of a brand, and that's the way they've structured it. And it also enables them to maintain that control. So besides the .Ferraris that you'll see, there is also going to be top-level, open ones called like .pizza or .love, .church, a whole range of domain names that the brands also need to consider, because some of these extensions are actually relevant to their industry. For instance, if you're a chemist, there's going to be .pharmacy. If you're in the fashion industry, there's going to be .fashion. So you need to understand how that's going to impact on your business and what you need to do to prepare for that, because this is considered to be the greatest change to the internet since the creation of the internet itself. Why? It's debatable, because on the one side you've got, and that's another one of our topics up here. Why? Is that on one side you've got a whole pile of people who are saying, well, why do we need them? We've got .com, we've got .gov, we've got all of those things out there. Why do we need all these other extensions? This is just a ploy by big business to capitalize on the market and to, further sink their teeth into, making more money. Well, and I can understand that, but my background being in retail and franchising and internet strategy, I can see that there is also a huge amount of opportunity here. And part of that reason is that as a consumer, when I type something into the internet, I am looking for something, and that word that I type in, I'm expecting relevant results to come back that are going to satisfy whatever my search query is about. So I am trying to look for grouping, I suppose. So if I'm looking for pizza, I'm looking for something to do with pizza. So the natural thought process for me would be that if a company has a .pizza, then they're up to date with what's happening in the online space, so they're more likely to be able to satisfy my request for an online question, but they're also in the right genre. You know, take Eagle Boys, for instance. Now, if you don't know who Eagle Boys Pizza is, who's Eagle Boys? If they came up in a search result, for a split second there, my subconscious is not necessarily going to identify Eagle Boys as being a relevant search term, whereas pizzahaven.pizza, for instance, automatically, straight away, in that split second, I'm going to be able to identify with that company. And when you're talking about things on the internet, we are talking about percentages, 1%, 2%. There is so much information that's out there, and you'd know this yourself. You're an internet man. You know, you can be out by an inch and be out by a mile in the internet space, and so that's why these top-level domain names are going to be so important. And you know, for a brand, this is going to be the absolute cheapest, most cost-effective way for them to be able to gain branding exposure. If you are an Australian brand or a global brand, for instance, and it doesn't have to be that, but let's say you're one of those, think of what mediums you have available to you in order to build your brand. The first thing that comes to mind is the internet. So being able to brand yourself on the internet as a .brand gives you that percentage of extra brand recognition and control that you didn't have before. I mean, I can think of a brand comes to mind that I won't mention at the moment. I can think of a brand that they're a franchise company. They have I think it's about 1,300 franchise stores in about 30 countries around the world. Now, each of those franchise stores, they have a website. Each of those websites has a different domain name. There's no consistency with that domain name structure, and the brand is freaking out because they don't know how to control this whole internet space. Now, if all of those franchises were under their brand, so you know, it might be store in Glenelg, whatever it is, .brand. If that franchise closes or if something changes, they have complete control over that. Whereas at the moment, they don't even know what domain names these franchisees have got that they're using. So these franchisees could go rogue, and then they can badmouth. And there are examples of franchises that have done that, franchisees that have done that. Now, I'm not saying that that's the whole motivation, but a brand needs to maintain their control.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like it's going to be really targeted towards people, obviously, as you say, trying to control their brand and how their brand's viewed in the marketplace, and specifically the franchise thing, where as it is now, as you say, there's lots of independent franchises with their different websites, and there's very little control going on. And
totally.
I can definitely see how having that control with your brand there could impact that.
Really what, and I wouldn't say the elephant in the room, but really the thing that this is all really based around on the internet is Google. Fundamentally, between 85 and 90% of all search online is done using Google. And that is changing as some of the other platforms like Bing and the likes get up to speed. But by far, the strongest platform is Google. So all of this really is irrelevant unless Google happens to be doing something, and they are. In fact, they have painted the algorithm to include the ranking for top-level domain names. They are previously there was the perception that a .com or would be more likely to show up higher in the search results than, say, a .net or a .mobi. And on that basis, a .com.au was more likely to show up than a .com, because .com.au is for Australia. Well, that's changing, and the impact that that is going to have includes into Google AdWords and a whole and obviously search engine optimization. So businesses need to be aware of that, because there's obviously millions of dollars that's invested into coming up in those search results. And if you're not on the front page of Google, as any search engine person will tell you, then you're invisible basically, because most people will be in that space. Now, actually, on that note, with .com.au, there's some cities have also applied for their top-level domain. So there's going to be a .New York, and more importantly for Australia is that there's going to be a .Sydney and a .Melbourne. Now, if I'm looking for a hotel in Sydney, then somebody who has www.getawayhotels.sydney is going to come up higher in the search results than what a .com.au for a hotelsydney.com or .com.au is going to, purely because they're basing it on the fact that a .Sydney is more likely to be relevant to a Sydney search than a .com.au is to be to a Sydney search. And there is still argument and debate over that, because they say, well, and your optimization people out there would say, well, it's all about relevance. Google says it's all about what's the most relevant site, and that's what comes up in search results. And my argument, and this is irrelevant of what Google does or doesn't say, is that if you have two websites that are absolutely identical in every respect, the content's the same, the content's updated at the same time, but the only thing that's different between those two websites is the domain name, the more relevant domain name will appear higher in those search results. And that's the way Google wants it to be. Google themselves have applied for over 100 top-level domain names. So that says something.
Yep, so they obviously care about it there. Being an SEO myself, the SEO, how this is going to impact SEO is certainly very interesting for me, and it will be interesting to see once they get out into the marketplace and start being used, how it impacts that, what Google's going to be doing with that. And also, it's interesting that...
I was going to say, there's actually up on my Facebook site, there's actually an article from Matt Cutts, who is... He's the man, and I refer to an article that he's done regarding this exact topic. So yeah, check that out.
Oh, awesome! I'll link to that in the show notes for this episode from the website if anyone wants to check that one out. Yeah, so obviously Google are taking note, as you said, if they've patented a process for including this in their algorithm and also applying for their own things themselves. And it's interesting to note that there's been a bit of a progression lately within SEO anyway towards more of a branded approach, giving more weight to brands on the internet as opposed to, say, keyword-rich domains or exact match domains, it's known as. So I can see the .brand certainly impacting that. And also, when you're talking about .Sydney, that's basically a brand in itself, like
that's
a city
right.
brand. So I can see how this sort of fits in with an overall picture as well. Let's change tact a little bit and think about how obviously most businesses or most small to medium-sized businesses aren't going to be able to afford the 180,000 or so, or even up to $500,000 for the whole process, as you mentioned,
yeah,
to get one of these domains. But when we're talking about these ones like the .city ones, how can the smaller businesses like the hotels, for instance, be taking advantage of these? Are they
Sure.
going to be? Is there going to be a city sort of organisation that's looking after those and distributing them to people who want them? And how is that going
Okay,
to work,
so
do you think?
sure. It'll be the same process as what happens now for you to purchase a .com.au. So you'll go to a registrar like GoDaddy or Melbourne IT or any of the other registrars out there, and you'll apply for a domain name. They will have a list of all of the domain names available, and you'll just type in what it is that you're after, and you'll go through the normal process. And that fundamentally won't change. So what there will be, though, will be far more choice. The argument that there's already 22, and some of them, many of them, are not full at all. But the thinking for me is that the choice doesn't go far enough. It's one thing to have 22 top-level domains to choose from, and it's quite another to have 1,000 domain names to choose from. I mean, there's even Google applied for .lol, LOL, as a strange one. There's even .sucks so you can imagine what this is going to create. And the idea from ICANN was to create diversity. It was to create thought. It was to create creativity in the internet space that they believed was not there. And a lot of the negativity is definitely coming from domainers, people who have bought up, lots of .coms that they then on-sell, for a profit. And the last thing they want to see is .com becoming less relevant, because that's obviously going to affect their cash flow.
Yeah, that's good that you mentioned that, because that was a question that just occurred to me. What these domainers think of this change. I wonder if do you think it's going to have actually going to have a massive impact on their business model, or do you think it will be maybe slowly
look,
diminish that?
Yeah. Look, I'm an optimist, so I'm always, and I'm progressive for change, and I would like to see more diversity, and part of what I'm doing out there as a passionate person for this is trying to speed up that process. The official word from people in the industry is that it is going to take a long time for these things to take effect, and part of that is because if you are ranking for your .com or your .com.au, and then suddenly you change your domain name, well, that's going to affect your ranking. So people are going to be hesitant to be changing that. So there will be a transition phase for those who are looking at transitioning, but they believe that the vast majority of purchasers will be new people who are just looking for their first domain, or they're looking for a new domain name for whatever reason. So that's going to be something that happens over time, because largely 95% of the population are not even aware that this whole thing is happening. It doesn't affect their daily lives at the moment, but as soon as they see those rankings get affected, they're going to start asking some questions as to why that's happening. I really believe that the success of the entire domain name industry for these new top-level domains is going to be largely up to the brands who have gone and purchased, or are purchasing their own trademark as a top-level domain. And the reason behind that is because, well, first of all, they've invested $500,000 plus at least $50,000 a year to maintain it. So there's an ongoing investment there. So any brand, any business, the objective is that whatever you invest in, you want a return on that investment. So these brands are not going to be any different. And initially, many of them purchase these top-level domains from a security point of view, in what they call a defensive registration, because they wanted to make sure that, you know, let's say if you're United Airlines, for instance, they wanted to, you know, try and secure their .united in case one of their opposition or another trademark did. Now, there's inherent issues with all of that, if you know, so I won't go into the political side of registering of top-level domain names, but you know, there are those brands out there that would hate to see their global trademark that they've invested millions and millions of dollars in suddenly be owned by another entity that they have absolutely no control over. So many of them invested just because they felt they had to. But the advantage that they've got is that they also have huge databases of existing clients, existing customers. And so for them, it's a matter of educating their customers about, you know, hey, we've got a new domain name. And, you know, you'll see, you know, going down on a bus, you know, a big sign, you know, talking about L'Oreal or Tiffany or even AFL or ANZ. So to bring something home, yes, AFL has applied for their own top-level domain name. So is Channel 7. They've applied for their own top-level domain name. So you are going to start to see these, you know, these domain names now appearing in advertising material that they're using to their customers, and also to show a point of difference between them and their competition. So the open domain names like, you know, .lol and .pizza, they don't have that database with which they can educate people. So they are largely looking at people just to start asking questions and educating themselves. Whereas the brands who have got, you know, everybody, you know, everybody's a fan of a brand somewhere along the line. Once they start getting involved with their advertising and promotion and their education process about, hey, we've got a .Tiffany, and you know, anything that happens under .Tiffany is a real you know, is the real product. You know, Nike, for instance, how many people want to you know, buy a pair of authentic Nike shoes? Well, part of the program that Nike and all brands are going to use is, if it doesn't end in our brand, then it's not us. And that's a way of being able to identify a real website that has the legitimate product from someone who's doing copies and it's a sub-quality product.
Great, yeah, fantastic. Let's just talk a little bit about timing. So, where are we at now in terms of timing? How long until we might start seeing these top-level domains out there?
Sure. That's that would be the when. Okay, so these top-level domain names are now going through the approval process. And there's various stages that they have to go through in order to get approval. In fact, if you go to www.gTLD.net.au, that is a website that we've set up that is dedicated specifically to top-level domain names, understanding the process, how to apply, the agreements and everything that's there. You'll find that on that site. There is some information that needs to be updated on there because this space is constantly changing. But if any of the readers want to, you know, get some more information about it, it's there. If any of them are wanting to apply, they can't at the moment. That they haven't done a second round, although they say they will be. But we're expecting that in the third quarter of this year that they will start to be getting approved, and you will start seeing that advertising starting to happen. And it's going to be very, very, very interesting. Huge opportunities for those people who get involved early, whether it be that, you know, for instance, an example is Virgin, who, when .XXX was listed, Virgin, Richard Branson went and defensively registered www.virgin.xxx because he didn't want that to affect his business and his trademark. So businesses who haven't applied and don't have you know, for these top level domains, they need to be thinking about what ones can they apply for that they can use to add value to their business, but what ones should they be registering as well to defensively register against somebody who might purchase it to use it for their own purpose and that could be negative to their business. So there's a few things there that they can look at. And there is ICANN has set up a trademark clearinghouse, which is where brands can go to apply before these domain names are released to the public. They can apply to have defensive registrations beforehand of these top-level domain names and secure that space for them. So, yeah, interesting.
Cool, cool. And have ICANN, have they given any indication as to when there might be another round? I thought I heard a 5-year number thrown around.
The way they said, look, we can only process 500 applications a year maximum, and although that could change, they haven't said that it would. So if there's 1,500 applications, assuming that there's no problems, there's no contentions, there's no, you know, political issues, that would take 3 years. Now, if there is problems, then that could take longer. Because, for instance, for .app, there were, I believe, 11 companies that applied to register .app. They have to go through a process of, first of all, being approved by ICANN, but then if those that did get approval, they then have to either negotiate amongst themselves, and if unsuccessful in that negotiation, they then have to go to an auction, and then that'll come down to he who has the most money wins. And, you know, one company by the name of Donuts, they registered for 307, I believe, top-level domain names, all open, all for people to purchase from, but they're in contention with many companies, including Amazon and others, who have also applied for some of these. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so there could be quite a process before we see another round later down the track. I guess
3 to 5 years, I think, is safe.
Yep, absolutely. I was thinking along the lines of when might we see a .Adelaide coming out there? Who would be responsible for actually doing the application for a .Adelaide? Would it be like Adelaide, the city of Adelaide, or?
Yeah, well, it would probably be the council would approve it, or so. For instance, I could. Well, our company does. Our company helps organisations to apply for top-level domain names, and you know, I could apply for a top-level domain name myself. When you get involved with something like a domain name that involves government, you need to have approval from the government in order to do that, and it would be more of of something that you worked with in conjunction. And you know what? I would when the applications were open. I'm kicking myself in the foot now for not contacting the Adelaide City Council about applying for it, now that I know that Sydney and Melbourne, because the thing was, nobody knew who was applying for what. Some had come out and publicly said, hey, look, we're registering .Toshiba or whatever it might be, but many kept it quiet. And it was only through the walking the hallways that you would find out about some of these things.
Great, yeah, I guess that also contributed to the defensive position thing that you were talking about before. If no one really knew who was registering what, there would have been a lot of, oh, we better get this and this in case someone else might be thinking of getting it.
If they don't, then they miss out.
And then you've got, on top of that, the perhaps 3 to 5 year period until they can actually catch up. So doubly bad if they don't get on top of it. That pretty much brings me to the end of the questions I have on this topic. Thanks very much for joining us on the show, Shaun. I think
no problems.
You're probably the best person to talk to about this topic. Obviously, you have quite a lot of knowledge and passion for it, so it's really good that we've come to you for this particular topic. Where can people? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say there is one more interesting thing that I did want to tell the viewers about, which I think is going to be very relevant, and especially in terms of the brands, is that now that the brands own or are going to own their own trademark, there is the possibility that they are going to offer to their customers a personalized web space experience for their customers. So it could be ShaunLeCornu.Ferrari, ShaunLeCornu.Tiffany, ShaunLeCornu.ANZ, and they will then provide a tailored web space. So if you do internet banking, for instance, your internet banking profile would be tailored around what you do on the internet, more so than it is now. Now, how that's all going to transpire exactly, the brands aren't really aware of. They don't know how exactly they're going to use that, but that is something definitely that if you're a fan of a brand, that you will, for instance, AFL, you may be able to go and have your name.AFL, and that may entitle you to certain benefits that you would only get as a .AFL member.
Yeah, it's just the more we talk about the topic, there's so many more avenues that you see that open up, and it's only going to get more, I guess, after we get in there. I mean, just on the AFL point, I guess all the teams are going to want, their team name.AFL.
Yeah.
Of course, you have fans with a subdomain of that, even with perhaps fan.team.afl, and there's so many possibilities. But I think we'll leave it there for today. If I'll put the links that you mentioned, both the Matt Cutts article and also, was it gTLDs.net.au for your website?
gTLD.net.au. If anyone would like to contact us on our other website, it's www.slamstrategy.com.au, or they can also find us on Facebook, SLAM Strategy, Twitter, SLAM Strategy, YouTube, SLAM Strategy, and also LinkedIn as well. So more than happy to chat to anybody.
Awesome. You obviously got your branding, your own branding there in line with the consistency there. I'll have all the links in the show notes for this episode at webmarketingadelaide.com.au. And thanks again, Shaun, for joining us on this episode.